Tonight's top stories involve Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Lincoln gives his speech short and sweet. He used a small amount of words to address the problems in our country today. It was at Gettysburg on the 19th of November, 1863. He showed a strong belief in equality among all people. He says, "And that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth." Lincoln's strong words shocked the people in the crowd. Everyone prepared themselves for a lengthy speech, but Lincoln used a small amount of words and it was just as compelling. The main speaker was Edward Everett of Massachusetts. He gave his drawn-out speech before Lincoln's during the dedication ceremonies. Overall, the ceremonies were very successful and effective, and Lincoln's speech stood out to everyone in the crowd. In other news, the Conscription Act, otherwise known as the Enrollment Act, was passed March 3rd, 1863. There started to be a brawl once this act was passed. The act stated that men from 20 to 45 would be drafted for 3 years of service. The act stated that the draft was required unless you paid $300. This caused some tension between the wealthy people and the less fortunate people, because the wealthy people had the option to opt out, but the less fortunate people had to follow the draft. The Emancipation Proclamation took effect the 1st of January, 1863. The slave states that seceded from the Union freed their slaves. The states that were loyal to the Union would keep their slaves. This was the turning point where it was clear that the issue of slavery was related to the war. And now to our reporter, Billy Lamana.
Megan, well, here today I have Abe Lincoln. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
That's good. What was the purpose of writing the Emancipation Proclamation?
Well, I wanted to inspire all slaves in the Confederacy to support the Union cause and to keep England and France from giving political recognition and military aid to the Confederacy.
Why didn't it work?
Well, the Emancipation Proclamation applied only to states that seceded from the Union, leaving slavery untouched in loyal border states. But the freedom it promised depended upon Union military victory. Also, it didn't end slavery in the nation.
It sounded like it ended in such a negative way. Anything positive out of it?
Yeah, it announced the acceptance of black men into the Union Army and Navy, enabling the liberated to become liberators.
Wow, that's so cool. Have you written anything else?
Yeah, I have. It's called the Gettysburg Address.
Can you tell us anything about it?
Sure I can. The Gettysburg Address is all about freedom. Many people believe the Civil War is all about our nation coming together. Actually, the Civil War is all about freedom and everyone becoming equal.
So, the Gettysburg Address is all about coming equal too?
Yeah. In the Gettysburg Address, I talk about how not just white people should become equal, but black people need to be equal too. So, if everyone is equal to each other, then freedom can happen.
Oh, that's great ideas. Where did you get your inspiration to write this?
Well, a lot of the ideas mentioned in the Gettysburg Address have to do with the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence is all about breaking free and becoming our own nation. Now, the United States wants to be free and declare everyone in the United States free. This is an ideal world for me.
Any other concluding ideas to end the show with?
Yeah. I talked about how people need to be recognized for what they did. Many people have died for our nation and for trying to protect it. These people need to be appreciated because our nation wouldn't be the way it is now if those people didn't serve our nation.
The Gettysburg Address was packed full with great ideas.
Yeah, it sure is. Many people agree and support everything in it too.
Awesome, that's all the time we have for today. And it was so nice having you for the show.
It was really great being here.
Please come back soon.
I really want to.
Our commentator, Emil.
We were part of one of the greatest battles in U.S. history, the Battle of Gettysburg. There were over 50,000 casualties in this horrific battle, pitting brother against brother in a clash that can never be forgotten. In dedication to all those who lost their lives and loved ones in this battle, a memorial cemetery is being constructed. The cemetery will be funded by the states and will cost approximately $2,500. David Wills, a 32-year-old attorney who convinced the governor of Pennsylvania to support the cause, suggested the idea. Mr. Wills invited Edward Everett to dedicate the cemetery. He also invited our very own president, Mr. Abraham Lincoln, to say a few words in order to formally hollow the grounds. When Wills says a few words, no one ever suspected a speech just over 2 minutes. Yet, in just over 2 minutes, Mr. Lincoln was able to get his meaningful and deep message across to the audience. Mr. Lincoln reminds us that our nation was formed in 1776 on the basis that all men are created equal. He stresses that this is the reason why we are fighting our other halves, not for personal gain or even bringing the Union back together, but instead for liberty and equality. The war has become a test of the success of the American Revolution, a test to see if this nation could survive through hardships. He says it's our duty to continue the unfinished work that the soldiers who died in the battlefield had advanced so far. Our president is taking a stand on his view of the war and entwines it in this dedication speech. Mr. Lincoln believes the slaves should be gradually freed in order to thoroughly preserve a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. The audience doesn't immediately catch on to this, but with further review of the address, this point is apparent. Never before has something like this occurred. Most before our time took a path of avoidance, or neutrality when it came to this poison apple issue, but Lincoln tackles it head-on. This address will not be easily forgotten, because it is a message to our nation, not just a dedication of a cemetery. Mr. Lincoln's words will have a significant impact on generations to come and will define what we as a nation will stand for. It is the first step towards a greater and freer America. And now, let's cut back to our reporter, Billy Lamont, for another interview.
Welcome, Robert Lee.
It's great to be here, Mr.
Sorry to go into war.
I planned to destroy railroad bridges of the north and then move on to bigger cities. Then I encountered Northern cavalry while searching for supplies in Gettysburg. We had the Union troops outnumbered, but they successfully managed to hold us back and evidently to our retreat.
So what happened once you retreated? Would the war have been different if you hadn't?
If we did not retreat and advance forward, we would have been able to gain access to our main railroads. Doing this would be able to prevent the Union from moving their resources and supplies to the war. If we had succeeded, we would have had an upper hand in the war. This would help us defeat the Union.
So if you had retreated, you would have upper hand in the war?
Yes, we have a strong military, and I believe that my upper military strategies would help us win this war.
Well, good luck to you, Lee.
Thanks. Good day to you, Mr. Lamont.
Now back to our anchor, Maggie.
Thanks, Billy. New York Draft Riots. One man was arrested in a recent riot in protest of the Enrollment Act. Police haven't yet given a sentence, and he was a poor Irish immigrant who couldn't afford to get out of the tracks. This year has been very eventful and in some cases tragic. And we're trying to get out of the war as soon as possible. If we come together as a nation, we can get out of it. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Wow, I'm so excited to be here. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Thank you. Well, here today,
Haley, what's wrong with you?
Okay. Okay, we're doing this right now. Billy said that. That was not me.
Thank you. Today I have Abe Lincoln. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I actually got the line. Get away from her.
And BEKAM, Robert Lee. How are you?
It's Beckham.
You didn't pause anyway.